Thank you so much for introduction and for inviting me to be here to give a lecture. I have to say, right now I'm a little bit exciting because it's 10 years ago I was here. I was visiting fellow as an Antonist. So it's 10 years past. I'm so happy to be here again. And also, I'm a little bit nervous because after 8 years teaching in Taiwan in Mandarin, I'm afraid I lost most of my English. Well, but when I back to the United States and after I followed the Twitter of the President Donald Trump, it's very inspiring. I know the English can be such simple, so I will try to use simple English like Trump. Now, today I will offer some brief remarks on a timely question, that is how to understand China. I think there are two main principles to understand China. First, it's very important to distinguish following three concepts: China, Chinese Communist Party, CCP, and Chinese people. You have to make difference between these three concepts. As I believe know, China is a concept that including historical, cultural, and other factors. And the Chinese Communist Party is, of course, a political concept. And the Chinese people is an ethnic concept. So this is two totally different three concepts. People should never confuse the three concepts. It's important to realize that many Chinese people do not agree with the Chinese Communist Party on many issues. But the Chinese people now, they cannot express their opinions because they don't have freedom of speech. If people consider China, if people outside China, I mean Western people, equate the Chinese people with the CCP, they cannot understand China well. The second main principle is that people should also distinguish two levels of China. One level is a state, and another level is a society. It's totally two different levels. People should also distinguish China's national dimension and its social dimension. It's China's national dimension that is rising under the nationalism, economic development, and increasing aggressiveness. Globally, even, by virtue of money and force, China's national dimension presents an image, a picture of state violence, a trend of closed political development. But however, at the same time, China's civil society is flourishing and is showing some characteristics that are precisely opposite to what the dominant force, that is the regime and the party, intends for society. People should not only look at China's national dimensions. If they want to have a correct understanding of China, instead, they should go deep into China's grassroots society to see what exactly is happening. That's two main principles to understand China. Now, let's look at China's national dimension. First, I think China is a very complicated, comprehensive body. On the one hand, the market-oriented economy has been playing an increasingly important role. But on the other hand, China's economic system is still very much monopolized by the state. I have several reasons here. One, the state-owned economy still controls the lifeblood of the national economy. The state still holds monopoly positions in key industries such as petrol, railways, finance, and so on. Two, Government of all levels in China have the power to dominate the distribution of important economic resources like land, capital, and other key resources. What kind of market economy is this? 3, due to the absence of the rule of law in China, government of all levels have a good deal of discretion, a great deal of power. They use this power to muscle in on business in variety of ways, such as by examining and approving projects, establishing market access permissions, regulating price, and so on. So nowadays in China, we see the economy growing, foreign investment still pouring in, and consumption still booming. But at the same time, we also see we also should notice other phenomena that state assets are losing. Domestic demand is fractured. The rural-urban disparity is widening. The gap in wealth is becoming worse, and the state of the environment and the ecology is deteriorating. So the reason that these contradictions coexist is that although the economy has developed really quickly in China, other things like politics, society, education, and culture have not developed at the same pace. So it's I call it unbalanced development model. And this unbalanced development model is the source of social instability. That's the situation of China. It's a little bit tricky. But why has a society become more and more unstable while the economy develops more and more quickly? That's the key question to understand China. I think because economic growth in and of itself is not the point. The point are the following four. 1, if Chinese people had shared the result of China's economic growth. 2, if the result of China's economic growth had been distributed fairly. And 3rd, if China's economic growth at the cost of freedom and justice. And finally, if Chinese people had a sense of participation during the process of China's economic growth. I think these 4 questions is very important. Without these 4 questions mentioned above, China's society would become more and more unstable, where its economy grows more and more quickly. This is China's situation. As a result, China has entered a we call it 维稳时代, we call it stability maintaining era instead of an era of economic reform and openness. This is the state level. Now let's turn to Chinese Communist Party, which I think is very interesting. The Chinese Communist Party, now they rule a country that has over 1.3 billion people. From what perspective should we look at CCP's current situation and future development? That's the question. In my opinion, I used to describe CCP as corrupted yet not defeated. In Chinese, we call it 腐而不败. Corruption means 腐败, but corrupted yet not defeated may be a proper description, I think. Let me explain it. The literal or surface meaning of the word 腐 in Chinese is corruption. Since Xi Jinping took power in 2012, China Waters thought his anti-corruption policy might work and that it would bring promise to the CCP's rule, hope that there may be a positive change in government and elite politics. This was obviously just wishful thinking. Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign targeted only on, I think, corrupted behavior, not corruption. That's totally different. The corrupt behavior and corruption is totally different, rather than the institutions which caused the corrupt behavior. That's the core of Xi's anti-corruption campaign. And even as he went after corrupt behavior, his target was very selective. How could an anti-corruption campaign like this achieve its goal? Most importantly, the huge rent-sinking space created by the corrupt behavior gave the CCP opportunities to rope in and absorb social elites and major capitals. If the party is truly clean, is truly honest or upright, then when the CCP look around at its own members, at itself, I really doubt that no money will be around the party anymore. Therefore, I think corruption is very important for CCP. Corruption itself had actually become the CCP's lifeline. Another meaning of party's corruption is that this party in appearance, this party looked like a flourishing tree, a huge tree that had lived for almost a century. But in fact, if you go deep inside the trunk, there are many problems. Today, there are still a considerable numbers of Chinese youth who apply for CCP membership. But everybody in China knows his or her purpose is only get some benefit out of the party. Is there anyone today, I doubt, who really understands what is communism? I really doubt it. A communist party of this kind, by appearance, is maintaining its livelihood. But once there is a gusty wind or strong driving rainfall, I think the regime will collapse, or at least will totter. There's no other reason but because at its core, this party has already rotten. It's already rotten. At the same time, we also know the fact that even though the party is corrupt and rotten, it has not yet suffered a crushing defeat. That's my opinion. The party has not reached the state of we call it bai, fu bai, the second Chinese character bai, which in Chinese means total defeat. There are numerous reasons for this, and I will mention only a few of them here. In addition to the space for rent-sinking that formed the party's economic legitimacy, the party's huge amount of assets accumulated during the past 40 years also has the capacity to calm any political or economic crisis. That's why some people argue that once the party could not stimulate domestic demand, then the Chinese economy would collapse. But I think the problem is more complicated than this. Maybe I'm a little bit exaggerate, but I do think that, for example, the government has a huge administration. Many people work for the government. So government's administrative expenditures are so big that just by depending on those expenditures, the party will not have to worry about the stimulation of demand. This is totally different from any other economy. More importantly, domestic social crisis has not yet developed into a situation that could cause the regime to collapse. As mentioned earlier, for the tree trunk to shatter, wind and rain are needed. But now in China, currently we only have scattered rain, small rain. For the decisive moment to occur, more conditions are needed. For example, the awakening of the middle class is very important. The brief fight of political dissent is very important. The ruling class, they have internal factional struggle. That's very important for the transformation. And the strong pressure from the international community is also important. But now in China, we lack of these 4 preconditions. So I believe these kind of conditions, even though I believe these kind of conditions will accumulate before the conditions mature, however, the Communist Party will not be defeated by its corruption, I think. So understanding the party's current situation is important to us to predict what will happen in the future of China. There's one school of thought which holds the views that nowadays China's domestic social problems have intensified and the social revolution will take place in the near 3 or 5 years, which will create mature conditions sufficient for political transformation. People who subscribe to this school of thought see the aspect of corrupt, but they do not see the reason for the party to not be defeated. Same thing here, another school of thought see the party's rule as strongly fortified, and that there's no possibility for it to collapse. The view is tricked by the surface of a flourishing trunk, because I think they did not discover the rotten core. So in my view, the party's condition of corrupt, not yet defeated, will not bring the party to a bigger crisis in the short term. Therefore, we will see the status quo persist for a while. However, because the rotted part is its core, the overturning of the tree is unavoidable. The only thing we are not sure is when and how that will happen. So therefore, regarding about China's future, I'm neither pessimistic nor optimistic, but I have enough patience. I think what I have and what we need is just to be patient to see what happened. I still remember in 2008, when Olympic in Beijing, I think that's the peak of so-called China model. That time I was at Harvard, and that night I watched the opening ceremony of Olympic. You all know that ceremony is splendid, it's so beautiful, directed by the Zhang Yimou, a famous director. And I have a friend who in charge of Fairbanks Center who knows China very well. And after watching that program, I asked him, what do you think? What do you think about this Olympic opening ceremony? She gave me a very simple answer, but I think it's a very insightful description about her thought of the situation of China. Very, very simple, just 4 English words, no Oxford accent. It's good. Good is good, yeah, it's good. But, when but appeared, something happened. Good, but too good. TOO. Good, but too good. I think this is a perfect description about the situation of China. If something too good, there must be some problem. So if you look at China, everything is good, but too good. That's the situation of China. Finally, I want to take this chance to talk a little bit about facing this situation, is there still hope for democracy? At least for me, I always ask myself, what can I do? And what can our generation, our 30 years ago when we fight for democracy in Tiananmen Square, we called 89 generation, what our generation can do for democracy in China. And this is what we are going to do. On June 4th this year in Washington, D.C., we established a new think tank. We called it Dialogue China. Dialogue China. Why we think this is very much necessary? Because we think since Xi Jinping took power in 2012, China had undergone dramatic changes. Domestically, the Chinese Communist Party's rule went back from authoritarianism to dictatorship or totalitarianism. Internationally, China began to expand both in the political economy and the ideology even. Some people say this is a dark age, but throughout history, it's always dawn after the darkness. Therefore, everything that happened in China does not necessarily mean democracy would not happen in China. In contrast, I think the great uncertainty is here in China now. It's greater uncertainty now. This great uncertainty generated by CCP may perhaps provide us some opportunities that we have never imagined. Sometimes darkness is also a hope. It's also a hope. So the founding of our think tank, Dialogue China, is a result of such understanding, and we think we need to be prepared for this opportunity. The Dialogue China would like to gather all the people who wish China to change. No matter the person is Chinese or not Chinese, we hope to have dialogue on China's future problems between different political forces. And the dialogue also includes the issues, of course, of like Taiwan, Tibet, Xinjiang, and Hong Kong's future. The Dialogue China is not a place, I don't want it to be a place for empty lip work or just a propaganda attack to the CCP. That's not our goal. Rather, I hope our think tank will be a place to generate concrete policies for the future of China after CCP's regime. I mean, those policies, institutions, and more importantly is solutions. If there's something happened, what can we do to deal with the situation? I mean, those solutions is our most important goal of our think tank. We will analyze China's reality, of course, but what we will focus on more is the transition period of China's democratic transformation. The members of our think tank includes the public intellectuals and students of 1989. For almost 30 years, next year is the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Massacre, but for these 29 years at least, we did not forget and did not give up on what we have dreamed of 30 years ago. We hope the Dialogue China could be our another effort 30 years after Tiananmen Massacre. We have realized that we need new people, young generation, some among you, to join the effort. In order to change China, we must have a young generation. In our team, so we have representatives from overseas Chinese students who are born in 1990s, we call it post-90 generation. We also have a representative from China's middle class. We have representatives from overseas Chinese. We have also realized that if China wants to have a real democratic reason as a strong country, we have to deal with a regional problem like Taiwan, Xinjiang, Xizang, something. Learning from all the, so for this purpose, in our team, we also have young representatives from Hong Kong and Taiwan. In our board member, we have Joshua Wang, Huang Zhifeng, Joshua. I think he gave a talk here for something.
Yeah, he spoke here in 2015.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. My board member, who is the student leader of Umbrella Movement. Another board member is Lin Feifan, who is the student leader of Sunflower Movement in Taiwan. They are all included in our board. So learning from all the lessons of the past 30 years, we will present the team to the public as a professional team. We will present a new face of Chinese opposite force. We know that we will face many challenges, but we are very confident because I think we are standing on the right side of the history. And certainly, we know that the changes we are expecting will not come easily, so we will achieve the goal step by step with patience and confidence. Our goal is very clear and sounds simple. We hope China, so when you talk about what's a democracy, my definition for the democracy, that will be four things. It's justice, freedom, stability, and prosperity. And the very interesting thing is somebody think we're the enemy of CCP and the CCP is the enemy of us, but I don't think so. We can be friends because we can still share some common ground. I think that we share the common ground is social stability and economic prosperity. But the differences between us as a democratic force and the Communist Party is this. I think in Communist Party's view, they think if China wants to have social stability and economic prosperity, there have to no freedom and justice. That's their point, I think. But in our point of view, I think for the social stability and the prosperity, we must have justice and freedom. That's our difference, and we are enemy anyhow. Such country, I think such country, I mean a country with justice, freedom, stability, and prosperity could be able to earn the true respect from the whole world. And I don't think China very rich now and very strong now, but I don't think China gets real respect from Western countries. I don't think so. But I really hope our country can get real respect. For that purpose, we must have democracy. That's my point. To reach our goal, we need support from various sectors of the society, from international community, from young generation, from middle class of China, maybe from Western civil societies. But I believe with such support, I really strongly believe democracy and freedom will eventually take root in China. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those opening remarks, which I think frame many issues for this talk very well. I want to follow up by asking you about young people and students. So you mentioned the involvement of students from Taiwan and Hong Kong in protest movements in the board of your organization. But what do you think about university students in mainland China? Because there is perhaps a received narrative that they are materialist, nationalist, more focused on their middle-class lifestyle than they are on liberal democratic ideas. Do you agree with this, or do you have more optimism in the youth in mainland China?
Well, even though inside China, I still have hope for younger generation. I know this generation is pretty different from our generation in 1989. 30 years ago, our generation kind of idealistic, but it's very difficult to describe generation thinking. Now it's idealistic. They are very individualistic. But I think that's also good, because I believe democracy and freedom should be based on the individualism. So if they really care about themselves, and if they want to fight, I don't care if they fight for the country or not, but if they fight for themselves, that's also hope for democracy. And I can see this kind of fight happening in China.
You criticize Xi Jinping's stance on corruption as being a very sort of hollow stance. Do you think that Xi Jinping thought is really a new ideology? And what sort of implications does this Xi Jinping thought have for state building and constitutionality in China?
First of all, I never know what is Xi Jinping's thought. And I really doubt
he
has a thought.
Neither do I.
Okay. I don't think he really has thought. He really tried to copy Mao Zedong's thought. That's not true. He tried to be the second Mao Zedong. So they want to tighten the control of the society. I think he put the party higher above the society. He cherished the unity of the party more than the unity of the state. That's quite different from Deng. So I don't think his thought. He just went back to Mao's era.
One of the issues that you mentioned was the need to resolve questions such as Tibet, Taiwan, the persecution of Muslims in the Uyghur areas. How do you think that Chinese democracy activists should approach these questions, given that they are so divisive, with people being increasingly nationalistic? How can you take a stance on these issues without alienating so many ordinary Chinese people?
Okay, first of all, I think the biggest problem about this kind of issue is understanding. I mean, our younger generation know very few about historical truth, not only what happened 30 years ago, and what happened in Xinjiang, in Tibet, and what's the thought of the Holiness Dalai Lama. It's all forbidden to talk about, forbidden to discuss in China. So I think first step, if you really want to have some good contribution for the future, if you want to resolve this problem, you have to know what's the truth. So spread the truth, I think, the first step. And secondly, in the near future, if something happened, of course we will directly face this challenge. At that stage, I think that's the title of our think tank. The dialogue will be very necessary. Whatever you have, what kind of a prediction you have for your own region, Taiwan, Xinjiang, Xizang, but we have to sit down and have dialogue first. I think that dialogue will take a long time, maybe, so I might not live until that time.
You made an opening joke about Donald Trump, and I want to ask if you think that his aggressive stance against China, both in the areas of exports and imports and also in defense policy, has any impact on internal Chinese politics. Do you think that the potential for economic fallout from these sanctions means that Chinese people will think differently about America?
It's a double-edged sword, I think. I just saw a joke on the internet, said after trade war, at least we know some common sense. One of it is we promised the international community a lot of things when we entered WTO and we swollen the promise. So we never know that, but when the trade war happened, I mean, something like this is really helpful for Chinese people, let them know more. And but I also think Chinese Communist Party can take this chance. I mean, Xi Jinping can take this chance to provoke nationalistic fervor. That's also dangerous for the future. It's easy for China just close the door. Such a big country, we close the door we developed for many years during Cultural Revolution period. I guess maybe Xi Jinping think it doesn't matter, let's back to that time. It's a golden time. He wants to be the second Mao. So I think it's a double-edged sword.
My final question is, how do you maintain such optimism and hope in the progress of democracy in China, given the immense power of the Chinese Communist Party, its security apparatus, and its assorted tools in repressing activism?
Well, first of all, I think if you really want some good thing happen, you have to believe in it. Belief is very important for a dissident to keep their fight. If you lost that belief, if you're disappointed, you can just run away. So if I want to keep on fighting, belief is very important. So whatever happened, I have to keep my belief. Secondly, I think democracy deserves to believe. It's based on human nature. I don't think there is some kind of a Western-style democracy or Eastern-style democracy. I don't think so, because democracy is based on human nature, and our Chinese people are still human. We deserve democracy. That's the reason.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to questions from the audience now. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand, and one of our committee members will bring a microphone to you.
Please use a simple English as Trump.
Yeah. Simple English, but perhaps no abuse. No abuse. Let's go to the gentleman at the end of the row here, right there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your speech. You mentioned about the expansionist policy of China. I really wanted to know how the expansionist policy of China, for instance, the One Belt, One Road initiative, actually impacts things like democratization within China. Does it mean that Xi Jinping's approval ratings within China are improving? And does that mean that the democratic movement is actually weakening because of expansionist policy?
One road, one belt policy, right? I think this policy is a kind of a threat to the democracy, global democracy. Because Xi Jinping, we call it Dasabi, I don't know how to translate in English, but spend a lot of money and cooperate with a lot of dictator countries. This is a threat for democracy. But I don't predict he can keep this policy for a long time, because our economy is not very good now. It's just the trend is going down. So I can't believe how many money he have to keep this one belt, one road policy. And this is a good business. I mean, those countries along the one road, one belt, I don't think those countries is a very good investment target. So obviously, he has a lot of political purpose, but have the surface of economic purpose.
Thank you. Next question, please. Let's go to the hand here on the third row. Yeah. If you could bring the microphone to the hand here, please.
First, thank you very much for being here tonight. I was wondering, in many places, social media has been a powerful tool for organizing resistance and advocating democracy, but given the party's frequent censorship of online discussion, what role do you see social media is playing in activism in China?
Okay. Well, of course, social media already become the most important tool for democratization, including China. I think it's changed a lot. People can know more than before through internet. Of course, government have a lot of control tools on the internet, but I don't think that's a big problem. Our young generation, they are so smart, so they can call it 翻墙 cross the wall. So, for example, like Twitter, I have a lot of Twitter followers. They come from mainland China. They just cross the wall. By this way, they can know a lot. I mean, this is a technology. Technology is always the enemy of dictator. Of course, they have very strong technology ability, but I think on the other hand, I know like Google, they're trying to do something to try to crush the firewall. So in the future, I still have my belief and my hope on the internet, because I think knowing the truth is very important for democracy.
Fantastic. Next question, please. Yeah, let's go to the hand on the front row over here, or the second row over here. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for being here. So what impact do you think that the soft power that China is employing in other countries around the globe, such as in African countries, will have on democracy in China and in those countries as well?
Well, I don't know in England, but I know in US there are a lot of Confucius Institute. That's the so-called soft power of CCP. Again, I think we have to make difference between CCP, Chinese people, and China. So I don't think Confucius Institute is sent by the Chinese people, it's sent by the Chinese government. Of course, I think the existence of this kind of so-called education institution is a joke, because there's a lot of sensitive issues that cannot be mentioned during the semester, and a lot of topics you cannot talk in the lectures or seminars. I give you an example, and I'm 50 years old, but still kind of naughty. So when I back to US, I wrote a letter to several Confucius Institute around my house, around Maryland, which I live now. And I said, I want to give a talk in there. I want to give a talk in Confucius Institute because I want to try to introduce true China. And can you imagine what happened? Can you guess what happened?
They said no?
No, no response. I waited for several months, totally no response at all. But I mean, this ridiculous behavior against the freedom of academic freedom is become a joke in academic circle. I have the latest news. Cornell University has already stopped all cooperation with universities of China because in their joint research program, there are several topics they cannot do research. So I do think that this kind of soft power has already damaged the democracy in Western countries.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Yes, let's take the hand here on the front row. If you could just wait one moment for the microphone.
Thank you. And one of my main points is that a rapid economic growth in China is bringing about instability in China, mainly because of a lack of freedom and justice. So my question is that, because what I've been seeing from the current world is that like regional conflict, religious conflict, like poverty is the main factors that really bring about instabilities. And China is actually dealing with these issues very well, and China is dealing with poverty very well in recent years. So why do you still think that China is getting more and more unstable?
Oh, I think I already answered in my speech, because I think the economic growth is not the point. The important point is how can you share this economic growth with the people, and is that share fairly? If during the process of political economic reform, the gap between wealth and poverty become widened, and that's not a good model for economic development. And this kind of economic development, more quickly, and there's more concern and more dissatisfaction happened because there's the gap. I think that's the reason.
Great. Moving on to the next question. Let's go to the hand at the back row right here.
Thank you. So many commentators, including Steve Bannon, have described the next global conflict as being in the South China Sea. I don't think anyone can deny that the CCP have been noticeably bold in recent years with currency manipulation, the Belt and Road Initiative, building islands in the ocean. What's your perspective? Do you think we're headed towards the next big sort of...
the Third World War?
Perhaps.
Well, I don't know, but well, in recent years, I mean, after Xi Jinping take the power, yes, there's really a trend of expansionism. I mean, China really want to expand their influence to Africa, to other countries. And gradually, I believe we will turn to the military influence. But I don't think the South China Sea is the most dangerous area. I think the Taiwan Strait is the most dangerous. I mean, well, taking back Taiwan as the part of China is is the biggest achievement Xi Jinping can get if he really want to have the third term or even fourth term. So regarding on his personal ambitions, I really worry that he try to take some way to attack Taiwan militarily. And I don't know if he can take it back or not, but at least I believe he want to try. So that's most dangerous things, more than North China Sea.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Yeah, let's go to the hand here in the middle, in the back. Yeah, you.
Thank you very much. I actually share some personal connection with you. My aunt actually worked with you during the 6-4 activity. So I actually know you have a personal connection with you. Thank you very much for being here. My question is actually a continuation of the previous two questions. So in your speech, you did mention that in order to gain respect from the Western countries, we do have to give freedom to the people in China. However, wouldn't you agree in a world where power is so respected over all the countries, for example, when US is so powerful, everybody respects US, wouldn't you agree that the most important thing for China to do right now is to ensure it have enough and a sustainable power within the country itself, have enough economic power, have enough military power in order to ensure that other countries would actually respect it due to its power, rather than just focusing on human rights perspective when it can even ensure its economic and financial power.
We are now very powerful now. I mean, China has already become very powerful, especially in Africa areas, and have a lot of influence in the world, not only in US, but you can say in UK, they're already very powerful. But as my personal experience, just like I told earlier, I don't think the Western people really, truly from their inner mind, they respect this country. They respect us because we have money. This is the money talk era. So we must have something else to earn the true respectation and the respect for human rights. Let nothing happen like Liu Xiaobo's death. These kind of things will not happen forever, can make China be more human, be more respectable. That's my point. I don't know if I answered the question or not.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the next question. And let's go to the hand on the end of the row here in the blue jumper.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and speak with us tonight. So if another protest like Tiananmen Square were to occur today, what do you believe the government's response would be, and what do you believe the impact would be?
I think government will crack down again. Yeah, this, well, if there's a student movement happened again, especially under the leadership of Xi Jinping, he definitely will crack down the movement. If we back to the Jiang Zemin's era, maybe now he can find some way, try to dialogue with the student. But as my understanding about Xi Jinping, he won't be tough, and he will not tolerate any challenge. So I do not encourage the young generation to go to Tiananmen Square. There are so many other ways to promote democracy.
Let's take one final question from the audience then. And we'll go to the hand on the second row here.
So actually, I have a question regarding your personal experience. So after the 6-4 event, June 4th event, you actually did not flee to United States immediately. Isn't that, I think what I read is that you went to your aunt's house and went rogue, and you were actually on the top of the wanted list. And also, after you went to the United States, you wanted your Chinese passport. I wanted to ask, why is that? Why did you not leave China immediately after the event? And also, in the future, do you want to go back to China, or you want to stay somewhere that is abroad?
Okay. In 1989, I didn't fly China, but I think that might be I was stupid because I still think I have opportunity to win. I want to stay to look what happened after, but well, that's one reason. Another reason is I think there must be some leaders take responsibility. If all of us just run away, I thought people will feel disappointed, so I want to stay in China. That's the reason I didn't contact those people who try to rescue student leaders to Hong Kong. So probably naive at that time, I was young. And then I spent 6.5 years in prison, and in 1998 I exiled to United States. Well, now I can tell you I have a green card, but I don't have U.S. citizenship. But now, of course, I don't have Chinese passport. I'm very few stateless people in this world, and I'm honored about it. The reason is I still want back to China, of course. The only obstacle for me to back is that I don't have passport. So no airline will allow me to aboard the airplane. Otherwise, I'm already back. Whatever they want to do to me. I still want to be a Chinese because I still have my dream to see China changed. And the second very important personal reason is I do have some friend that died in 1989. I don't want to betray.
So can you still see your family?
Oh, my family can visit me. Yeah, I think unless I go back to China, the government just want me to stay as far as possible away from China. They don't care if I can reunion with my family or not. So my family can visit, but my parents are already 86. They cannot fly to US already, so we still cannot see each other. Yes, 30 years,
Thank you very much for coming to the Oxford Union today and sharing
Thank you,
both your personal story.